Welcome to the Assembly Committee on Education, the most studious committee in the Nevada State Legislature. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assembly members De Silva, Dahlia, DeLong, Flanagan, Hanson, Hardy, Hunt, Koenig, LaRue Hatch, Mosca, Orentlicker, and Chair Torres Fawcett.
Welcome to the audience here in Carson City, those joining us in a very packed room in Las Vegas, and those who have already subscribed to our YouTube channel and are following in on YouTube. If you have not yet, don't worry, there's still floor sessions, so you can subscribe today. A couple housekeeping items. Please silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide your business card to our committee assistant. Ms. Whalen is there to support you. Electronic copies should have been submitted to our committee staff already. Members of the public may provide testimony on a bill, either in person or by telephone. Please see the meeting agenda for the telephone number and meeting ID. The meeting agenda and committee information is available on Nellis, which can be accessed through the legislature's website. You may also watch it on our legislature's YouTube channel. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we do not agree with one another's opinion. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. Before we begin the hearing, I also want to note that we will be limiting support, opposition, and neutral testimony to 30 minutes. So I'll take members of the public that are present first. I will always take those, and then we'll go to the phones if there's time remaining. At this time, I will go ahead and open the hearing on SB 460, and I know that we have the State Superintendent Steve Canavero, who will present the bill. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Assembly Education. Steve Canavero, the Interim State Superintendent of Public Instruction. I just want to begin with some appreciation for all those that worked on the bills and, of course, this bill. Especially grateful to the Majority Leader and her team, who I understand schedules being as they may on the last day prohibits her attendance, and the Governor and his team as well for their collaboration. Senate Bill 460 today, the 925 adopted amendment, reflects the Majority Leader's and the Governor's shared commitment to accountability, transparency, and efficiency. Today I'll just present that shared commitment, which is a holistic plan to improve education across Nevada. And this act reflects extensive collaboration, dedication across the aisles to prioritize education and improve outcomes for all of our students. I'll briefly present the bill around 4 domains. So themes, if you will: accountability, transparency, efficiency, and opportunity. And then if that works, I'll open it for questions that you might have. I would note that there's also a conceptual amendment, and part of that conceptual amendment includes, and conversations include, a change in nomenclature from low-performing or underperforming schools, which are currently in 925. I'm going to stick with that, knowing that there will be an opportunity to discuss the language change, but just for trying to avoid any confusion. In terms of accountability, Section 9.1 establishes a new 5-member oversight board with the authority to approve or deny proposed interventions in a school and district when the local board of trustees fail to comply with law, or where schools or the school district fail to make academic gains. This board serves as an important check and balance as interventions and supports are contemplated for low-performing schools and or districts. The Act also revises provisions regarding the Nevada School Performance Framework and introduces a tiered system of interventions and supports for districts and for schools. I'll start with districts. For the first time in Nevada's history, the Act introduces a Nevada District Performance Framework, mirroring the tiered accountabilities and interventions that we've become accustomed to and that are in the bill for schools, but for boards and or districts, inclusive of charter sponsors, and that's in Section 6 and 9. These sections develop a new performance framework designating districts and/or sponsors of charter schools based on the performance of their schools. It also introduces an organizational assessment to help identify instability or hardship with a district or board of trustees. And a district may be identified as low performing if it has either received one of the two lowest ratings of performance in the statewide system of accountability, the Nevada School Performance Framework, or District Performance Framework. If it has not met its achievement and performance targets pursuant to that accountability system, if the administration, trustees, or financial management are experiencing hardship, or if a state of emergency has been declared for that district, the process for the district sponsor and board of trustees is to be placed on probation, receive supports, and/or receive interventions. The district improvement plan or a board improvement plan are both developed within the bill. Again, any significant intervention must be approved by the oversight board. The Act also revises provisions for schools and introduces a similar tiered system of interventions and supports for low-performing schools in sections 6 through 9 and 14. It expands the school improvement plans and makes progress towards improvement part of the school rating system under the NSPF, our existing school performance framework, significantly expands the level of supports and interventions available, and if they're designated as low-performing, by this system, they'll be placed on probation similar to the districts for 2 years and be provided comprehensive supports. If they've made progress in 2 years, if they have not made progress in 2 years, the school would be designated as underperforming, and interventions are suggested to the oversight board that I mentioned previously regarding possible replacement of key personnel or direct oversight by the department as potential interventions. The Act also revises provisions regarding the Nevada Educator Performance Framework, again introducing tiered systems of intervention and supports in sections 38 and 49 through 52. The Act establishes accountability and support for post-probationary teachers and school administrators who receive performance ratings of ineffective or minimally effective, assessed through a new or revised Nevada Educator Performance Framework that will now include student growth and achievement. Teachers and administrators must undertake performance improvement plans if they're minimally effective or ineffective for 2 consecutive years, with increased professional support, mentoring, and monitoring. Persistent challenges to meet the defined performance benchmarks within the designated period of 2 years may result in a reversion to probationary status, a reassignment, demotion, or removal to ensure effective school leadership and enhance overall student success. The Act also includes extensive accountability and financial transparency reporting under the Opportunity Scholarship at the school and the scholarship granting organization. That's in sections 30 through 33. This includes student achievement reporting at the school level and financial and organizational reporting at the level of the scholarship organization. The Act also includes liability protections for educators, school employees, and that's located in 38.2 and 58.7 of the Act. It grants civil and criminal immunity to school employees who intervene physically to break up fights, altercations, or violent incidents in schools, so long as they act in good faith. The next theme is transparency. In section 1.3, elementary schools will now develop, as part of their school improvement plan, a 3-year strategy to improve outcomes with clear goals. In sections 19 through 28, charter school operations and governance includes language regarding the formation and expansion of charter schools requiring meetings to be held in a county in which the proposed charter is to be located, application requirements for charters to demonstrate sound fiscal practice, and adjustments to the board of the SBCSA, the State Public Charter School Authority. Also adds reporting regarding the amount of time conducting assessments and tracking the impact of professional development on student outcomes, sections 34 through 35 and 59 inclusive. The study, which is aimed at improving our preparation of administrators, is required by the department to study the impact of state-funded administrator preparation programs and that they have on student and school outcomes. Again, this is for continuous improvement. There's also requirements for schools, districts, and charter schools that are working on performance improvement plans that I referenced previously to regularly share updates with the public at meetings of their board. And Section 7 includes additional reporting of pupil outcomes through our publicly available Nevada report card. Efficiency. There are multiple reporting efficiencies, reducing burdensome or duplicative reporting and creating a process for educators and administrators to request review of various reporting requirements. In Section 1.7, it empowers the state superintendent or district superintendents to waive, modify, or eliminate redundant reporting requirements for schools and districts, streamlining data collection by removing reports that are duplicative or not utilized, reducing administrative burden on school staff. The bill further reduces class size reduction reporting to one time per year, removes the minimal expenditure reports, and removes outdated statute regarding posting via newspaper. Sections 2 through 5 clarify the role regarding the development of the statewide plan for the improvement of pupils, specifically the plans developed by the department in collaboration with the state board. And importantly, this act clarifies the roles of various boards and commissions important to the state, and that includes the role of the Innovation and Excellence in Education to specifically assess metrics, reporting, and accountability. Section 5.5 is a good example. And Section 12, clarifying the role of the Commission on School Funding to review funding allocations and methodologies. The bill also introduces several interim studies for the Commission to complete, including additional analysis of the pupil-centered funding plan, sections 11 through 12, 62 through 63, and 80 and 81. Section 37 and 38 establish the role of the newly created Recruitment and Retention Commission. This replaces the Advisory Task Force on Recruitment and Retention currently seated. The legislation enables this commission on recruitment and retention of educators to recommend strategies to address Nevada's teacher shortage and high turnover rates. They are further charged with conducting an interim study. There's also additional roles and responsibilities to the Commission on Professional Standards. And this bill also includes an opportunity for the department to participate in the RAP Back program to improve security and ultimately reduce costs to educators. Almost there. The next theme is around opportunity. There are multiple initiatives meant to expand innovation and opportunities for students. Section 13, inclusive, expands funding and align priorities for our early childhood education programs. This is both, as we know it, the ECLIP and the Nevada Ready Pre-K. Broadening eligibility for grant funding to include not only school districts and charter school sponsors, but also institutes of the Nevada system of higher education. Adjusts per seat funding to match the current per pupil amounts, prioritizing students with IEPs or needing social, emotional, behavioral supports, or students whose home language is not English, and students at the 250th percentile of the poverty threshold. As an appropriation to fund the expansion of facilities for early child education in areas of the state where access to high-quality early childhood is needed is also included in the act. Also in the act is a system of open enrollment, which also includes transportation funding and prioritization for students in 1 or 2-star schools. This is in Section 14.65 and 14.65. There's an appropriation for $7 million that will be conceptually amended into the second year of the biennium. It's currently in the first. We're going to move it to the second year of the biennium, hopefully. There's also language supporting an increased access to school counselors, and that's in Section 15, and expands requirements regarding professional development for core competencies, school improvement practices, and literacy supports. There's also funding to support literacy interventions in Section 14.2, consistent with the state's goal in Read by Grade 3. With funding for literacy intervention programs available to students struggling in the content area of reading. This includes grants or resources for tutoring, summer reading camps, or other targeted interventions outside normal class time to boost early literacy skills, and expanded training and requirements focusing on K-3 literacy. The law requires school districts to adopt evidence-based reading curricula and intensive reading interventions in kindergarten through 3rd grade, revises reading instruction standards to align with the proven literacy practices of the science of reading. It also introduces a pilot to integrate STEM into K-3 literacy, and that's in sections 33.93. Introduces a single-purpose, federally recognized Ed Service Center to support school and district improvement and the provisions of this act. And it also introduces a teacher apprenticeship program to support pathways and pipelines to more educators in classrooms, and that's in section 69 and 70. There's also a pilot program for educators to pilot an alternative pathway for teachers to demonstrate subject matter competency outside of our currently used praxis exam, and that's an 85.5. And lastly, to further support our educators and our districts, there is a differential pay program for teachers at Title I schools. Madam Chair, I try to do my best to cover the provisions of the bill in a way that wasn't just a walkthrough. I'm happy to walk through the bill if that is what you would like, and would be open to any questions that you or the committee members might have.
Thank you for that presentation, Superintendent. I think a number of us were probably following both SB 460, but then I think it was AB 584. So we've kind of seen some similar language in both of those pieces of legislation that now make up the bill before us today. So members, who do I have for questions? I'll do like a go around and then we'll kind of come back. So I know I have Mosca and then LaRue Hatch and Flanagan. All right, and then I'll DeSilva. Thank you. Just so I have a good round to go. I don't think we need to do a section by section breakdown, or we will be here till Sunny die. I want to make sure we have time to do other important business before us. So I'll go first to Assemblymember Mosca.
And I want to start by thanking our chair. I know she's done a lot of work on this, so we thank you, Chair. And thank you, Superintendent. We appreciate you and all this work. I know we talked about this in ways before it was combined. I know you've done a lot of work, and I just appreciate, too, all the discussions we've been having. I thought it would be helpful to really just start high level today. So I'm going to first start with the Public Education Oversight Board. You know, I definitely have some concerns, and I've heard a lot of people have concerns around a small group of people having a lot of decision making in the state, whether it's taking over a school, removing a superintendent, taking over a district. Can you just talk on the record, you know, where did this idea come from? Are there other states that do it like this? And how do you just foresee that a small group of unpaid individuals would be able to successfully do the mission in the bill?
Steve Canavero, thank you for the question. There were, when you and I appreciate noting that there's clearly hope that you see elements of 584 and 460 in here, given the familiarity that folks have with those bills. The original intention around the oversight board was first established in 460 with the intent of ensuring that there were accountability for school districts, and the provision in 460 specifically is around the state of emergency declared for a school district. And then in 584, there were interventions or supports along the tiered system that included some interventions at the governance level for boards of trustees. And that authority was granted in combination both with the state superintendent, but then ultimately it would be by the governor would make decisions specific to, I would say, any material intervention at the level of elected board members for the boards of trustees. When we had discussions about this, about the two bills, it's clear that there was an intention for there to be some decision-making and around the accountability for our school districts. So what came out of that discussion was a revision to the oversight board in 460 to create a public oversight board that included charter sponsors as well as school districts, and that the membership would be as articulated and changed to 5. And then throughout the revised 460, there are requirements for the department or the superintendent as they're working with districts or schools through the probationary status on improvement and supports to continue to communicate with this oversight body to ensure that they're not just receiving a decision on one day, but they're actually read in on the work that's gone on both at the district, the school level, the department level, and the other support providers. And then ultimately, they would be empowered to either approve or deny with reasons a plan, a detailed plan that the superintendent is obligated to provide to that board should an intervention rise to the level of their decision making. And I think you can see in the bills that the ideally the work is done between the department, support providers, the districts, and the schools. But over the course of years, and in some cases I've got kind of laid out here, where the oversight board, there's a graphic I hope you have access to, or we've got a few copies here, where their decision making would kick in would be for districts. We have modeled it, we think, around the 2030, 2031 school year, and this would be sort of along the trajectory of performance, not an emergency is declared, or 2033, 34, where it gets into deeper additional measures, which would be required. Does that help you provide some context?
Follow. Thank you. Yes, that's actually very helpful context to hear how both of the bills have merged, especially because I know our committee, not many members are on ways, so they may not understand that. So thank you for that. And so that is very clarifying. And then my question was, what is that modeled after? Is it the gaming control board, or is there another state where we've seen it where that kind of model has been really successful? Just trying to understand the context of that.
Steve Canavero, I would say in other states with similar provisions for boards of trustees and districts, it tends to be at the state board level. I think here the concept, again, borrowing from the collaborative work that existed developing 460 and 584, we decided that, we'll merge this board, make an odd number, and then ensure that we felt like its membership was appropriate.
Okay, thank you. And last question, Chair. And, I do want to say on the record, there are some things in this bill that I really appreciate, right? On removing the quintile language for the at-risk is something we have heard many, many, many times throughout the interim, and want to make sure that our educators in our schools know we have heard them. It's in this bill. I know there's a section about counselors. I personally appreciate that. And so there are some things that I appreciate, but I think it's just important we get all the questions and the context on the record. And so my other question, just leading to that, I'm on the amendment, so maybe my sections will be incorrect, but on section 56.5, it talks about the creation of the Education Service Center. I know that we've had deep discussions about this. I know that they exist in other states, and they've actually really helped in ways and means. We had a discussion about maybe the lack of capacity for NDE to do some of this work, so I think it's really important if we could talk about what is the Education Service Center, what do we expect they will be executing in this bill, and just kind of how does that all work?
Steve Canavero, Interim State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, we're, I think I referenced this before, one of 11 states that does not have a federally recognized intermediary, is like the technical stuff. But these are, they call them intermediaries. They sit between the State Department of Education and our local education agencies, our school districts. They're used for a variety of purposes across the country, special education, regional supports. So they're well established. The vision here, as we were working in the original language for the Education Service Center came into 584. And the original intention behind it was, geez, there's a lot of work here. And we understand that this is a complicated bill, and we also understand that it's a long-term bill. And so this is, in my perspective, this is starting somewhere, but building a long-term vision for supports across our state and improved outcomes for students. Well, then who would do the work? I got that question quite often. Like, okay, is the department really ready to take this on? And so as we had further and further discussions and looking at other models, the Education Service Center surfaced as an opportunity to develop an intermediary in Nevada in order to really execute the provisions, support the department in the execution of provisions of this act, and have a single focus on student and district supports for increasing student outcomes. And I'm glad that language is here and that should be on the record. That is what it needs to do, and that's what it shall do should you pass this bill. And we're creating a structure. And in the first biennium, perhaps the board's in a perfect situation. The board is seated. we find funding, again, because it's federally recognized, it can interlocal with the department in a similar way as RPDPs do to have funding pass through to support the Ed Service Center, and that it can begin to build out in collaboration with the districts and schools, what would this Education Service Center look like to be focused on increasing outcomes and supporting our boards across the state. So it's a bit more than you probably wanted, but that's my response.
No, thank you, and I thank you in advance for answering all our questions today.
Thank you. Next, we'll go ahead and go to Assemblymember Hunt.
Thank you, thank you, Chair. Oh my God, it's too cute. Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much, Superintendent. My question is, how many schools in Nevada will qualify as underperforming and persistently underperforming?
Thank you. Steve Canberra, Interim State Superintendent of Public Instruction. So we've done some modeling, and as the language exists in the bill, there's about 53% of our schools are in the 1 or 2 star status. They're high school, I think, under the 60%, and the third grade, more than half of students in third grade are not at that particular cut level. So it's a wide net that is cast. How many ultimately, though, will move into underperforming? We don't know. So the next 2 years are obviously our build out for the program. The bill becomes effective when it's adopted, or in July. But the provisions that are specific to the, let's say, the interventions or consequences, those then are in 27, 28, and 28, 29 is when a school, 27, 28 is when a school could enter probation. So there's some time. So I just wanted to qualify that the 53% is us looking backwards, but not necessarily as a way of understanding what it looks like going forward. But the school would have to develop, if they're identified, would develop a improvement plan with the support of the department. Our goal is that not all schools move through probation to become underperforming. Obviously, that's not the goal. The goal is to support them in place and to have improved and increased student outcomes. If you haven't really gotten into the bill, there's a lot of may language within the bill. So there's some discretion built into the bill about for a school that's showing trajectory. Well, that school may best be just supported as it continues to grow, whereas a school that perhaps is not or is going in the opposite direction, the may language would then allow for deeper supports or potential interventions over the time period. So just sort of the both the number and then stepping back and looking at how the whole system would work.
Thank you. I'll go next to Assemblymember LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for presenting this today. My question is building on that a little bit. I'm looking at section 14.3, specifically subsection 6 sub B, which talks about that some of these schools can be in this corrective measure indefinitely. And I just wanted to ask, if we have 53% of schools that can qualify as underperforming, and then the state is now taking them over, does the state have the resources to take over potentially 53% of our schools indefinitely? And I know you're saying that number will be lower, but even if it is lower, that is a significant burden. And I'm just wondering what that will impact our budget and on NDE's ability to perform that.
Steve Canberra, thank you for the question. Would you mind repeating the section that you were looking at specifically, just so I can catch up?
14.3.
Yep.
Subsection 6 sub B. And on. Yeah.
So the gist is that obviously the state would not have the capacity to. I mean, should all 53, and I don't think that's the intention, really, of the bill. I think the intention of the bill is to lay in an accountability system and tiered supports, and then tiered interventions. Many of the interventions are may, And there's really two, if you're familiar with 584 and 460, the interventions at the school level are two now. So I think before there were five total. And so the permissive interventions would be direct state takeover or working to replace key personnel at the school site in order to provide improvement. So there's at least those. And then in addition, obviously with the overlay of our existing school improvement system, we don't want a school indefinitely, but at the end there has to be some improvement, and this is where we would obviously work with the school board if the school board is identified as well, or if the school board isn't identified, we'd still work with the school board to try to build the improvement at that particular school. So there's two different ways to, at the end of the line, if you will, to intervene in a particular school. One of those would be direct management, and the other would be the replacement of key personnel.
And thank you. And just as a follow-up, though, I want to get some clarification. Does NDE have the ability, the funding, and the staff and the resources to fully take over these schools on an indefinite basis?
Steve Canavero, so not knowing how many schools would be subject to this, again, this is the start of a build out of a long term. Our math would say somewhere around 2930 would be when we would identify persistently underperforming schools. So there is clearly a resource constraint in all of this work. The districts feel it, schools feel it, the state feels it. In order to build the system, there is an appropriation in the bill to support the Department of Education to build out the infrastructure and to begin the supports in the process that we would need next year in order to start launching and building out this framework. There's a number of ways to support a school outside of the takeover from the department's perspective. That includes the state monitor, an appointment of an improvement official. So it isn't always just take over key personnel or nothing. There are, I think, intervening and other options that are available to the department than just going right to takeover.
Thank you for that. And then just building on that, we have heard a lot this session about the importance of local control. And as a teacher, talking to other teachers, one of the biggest issues and struggles we see is that our districts are frankly too large and they are not connected to what is happening on the ground in real life in the classroom. And so my question is, how is removing this authority to the state, which is even more disconnected from the daily reality on the ground, going to lead to quality improvements in our classrooms?
Yeah, Steve Cambro, fantastic question. And I think the intent behind the 460 is that our school districts do it all. Like, they get it done to improve outcomes and support our educators and our principals at the school sites. Because we also had lots of conversations in the last few weeks, at least since I've been here. It's been 6 or 7 weeks now, I think, as interim, with principals who had a similar message to us, which is like, hey, I'm totally happy to be held accountable, but like I'd have no freedom or no flexibility to make decisions at my school site on particular matters and bulleted list. So in some ways, the state intervention is actually about returning some authority to the local school site. A good example of that would be the pilot program now in the 460 around innovation schools, where we previously had the pilot program as an option for one of those interventions where administrators and teachers at that school could petition to become an innovation school, and they would have more flexibility. So think of like there was a number of lines of questions about how is that different than a charter school? Well, it should have similar flexibilities at the school site, but it's still a district school, has the governing board of the district. So we have the opportunity as a pilot now to test out that interest to see if we can have school improvement where authority is returned to the school site in a meaningful way. And then I think there's 3 in large districts and 1 in rural, if I remember correctly, in 460. So, long way to say, I don't know that it always means that that suddenly we're moving further away from the school site, because there's a number of examples in the bill where we actually are moving closer to the school site in terms of supports, ideally with the district in mind as well to do that work.
Thank you. I'll go next to Assemblymember Hanson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here and presenting what I think some of my colleagues on the other side are calling the big, beautiful education bill. But we're just going to have some fun. Anyway, thank you for all the hard work. I'm feeling hopeful that the trajectory is going in a really good direction. I do have a concern I wanted to get on the record. In Section 20, when we talk about the State Public Charter School Authority that consists of the 9 members, and we talk about those appointments, sub E, 1 member who is an elected member of the Board of Trustees of a school district, just concerned that that we have a authorizer of a school district charter then being on the state level where they're an authorizer and there being a competing authorizers. Just appears to be a conflict of interest, and also maybe hoping that we have somebody maybe in lieu of that to be somebody who's familiar with the financial administration of a school district, not necessarily an elected position. So just if you could maybe give me some clarity.
Steve Cambro, interim superintendent, and thank you for the laugh. That was well. It brought some oxygen into my body. Yes, there have been a number of conversations about potential conflicts related to an elected board member on the SPCSA board. There also has been raised some suggestions that a need that the SPCSA would benefit from is, if I remember correctly, public sector facilities and public sector facilities financing in particular. It wasn't a specific expertise that was listed in the sense of the public sector, but it was one that was identified that the SPCSA would benefit from.
I appreciate that, and so just wanted to get on the record. Happy with a lot of things that are going on, but that concern, if we could hopefully address that possible conflict of interest. Thanks.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Always a great day to be in Assembly education. I'm so happy I get to spend my last morning with the legislative body for this session here in this room. At this time, I'll go to Assembly Member Flanagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning. Thank you for being here. There's a section in the bill that talks about, well, in line with my colleagues' comments earlier and your mention of replacing key personnel. I'm curious to find out how it's perceived that will work. So if personnel is already there working on a school and they're familiar with the students, student progress, why the thought is that replacing that staff with new staff and giving them additional tools is the solution rather than pouring into the existing staff who's already familiar with the school. Why do we think this is the way to go?
Thank you for your question. So the intention of the bill is that all available options are available. But that there are a number of options that are available as schools continue to need further supports to meet the needs of kids in their community. And so it's an option. There are protections as well in that section for any individual who is moved from a particular school under the CBA. There's protections around principals who might be transferred, especially, or school employees if they're effective or highly effective. And so that's the intention isn't that side of it. But it is in some ways to assess the personnel at the school, largely not unlike what school districts do already, but it's just to assess the group of individuals, the adults leading the school, to see what might be missing or what needs to change, and then having the opportunity to make adjustments in personnel at that school site.
Madam Chair, may I have a quick follow-up on that? Go ahead. So if the intention is to assess how they're doing, moving them may not necessarily provide any information. I mean, I could see if you said you were going to assess them while they're already in place and try to identify where the holes are. But to remove them and then think you're going to assess the problems by bringing in another team that's trying to get familiar with the school that they're unfamiliar with, I just don't see how that's a solution.
Steve Canberro, yeah, I think as you framed it, it feels like to me a recipe for disaster. That wouldn't be the way that it should roll out. And the models that have worked is primarily around the school leader. And this is sort of a combination of where 460 is in agreement and the original 584, those original bills were understanding the role of the principal in leading change at a particular school. And so the focus in the original 460 was at the principal level. Here we sort of expand it to both the principal and the personnel at the school. So the assessment would happen before any movement occurs to understand, are folks ready and prepared? If let's say we're working in the 4th or 5th year, but we haven't seen any improvement, then I think it's reasonable to start to consider, well, maybe we have the wrong folks on the bus and maybe we do need a change. And so that's where this provision, and again, that level of a consideration is proposed to the oversight board. It's not something that's unilateral by the superintendent.
Thank you. I'll go next to Vice Chair De Silva.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you again, Superintendent Canavero, for your presentation. I had a question about the open enrollment language in the bill. I know that this is again an idea that's very popular, in the state. It's very popular in my district with my parents. And my question was, I know we've discussed this in this committee so far already this session. And is there any differences between the language that we have in the amendment versus what we've already talked about in this committee? Thank you.
Thank you. And just so members are clear, I think the Vice Chair is referring to AB 533, which we passed out of this body, I think, like 2 days ago, and the language in this bill.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Steve Canberro. I think the intention in the revised 460 is to align with 533. The area in the original 584 and in the alignment that perhaps was a little bit different is specific to ensuring that students who are enrolled in a 1 or 2 star school both have the opportunity and the agency to participate in an open enrollment program that may only have been, let's say, realistically available to families who could have afforded the time or the capacity to transport their student to another school. So I mentioned it quickly in my opening, but in the revised 460, there's a $7 million appropriation in the second year of the biennium to provide both the agency, so that we pay for transportation for students in 1 or 2 star schools to move if they choose to or participate in the open enrollment program. And then there's obviously, when you open up that kind of a priority, then there's also in this revised 460, there's language specific to if a school receives more applications than they have available space for, then there becomes a lottery that would kick in for those students, prioritizing, again, students coming from a 1 or 2 star school.
Thank you, Vice Chair. At this time, I'll go to Assemblymember Warren Licker.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for taking us through this important bill. And I'd also like to talk about the open enrollment. The opportunity provisions are really important here. And as I read through it and listen to your discussion, the logic takes me a little different direction. And this might be, step 2 in 2027. But as I understand it, right, if we're in 14.7 and subsection 5, well, we'll start with subsection 6. You talked about the priority, right? Students in low performing schools, staying in your zone of attendance, keeping siblings together, and so on. So there are a few things that get you priority. And then in the previous subsection, things you don't take into account. We're not going to have people write 10-page essays about why they're their artistic or academic or athletic ability should take them to this school. So it sounds like, and then you talked about a lottery if we're over capacity. So it seems like a pretty simple process. A point or two for this, no points for that, and then we sort it all out. And all of this is designed to make sure that access to open enrollment isn't based on people who know about it, know how to game the system, have the money, or the parents, or connections. Anyway, all of that logic takes me to think when you come in to register, you should rank your top 3 schools. Everybody should do that. We have a simple process for deciding who has priority, and then just run it through and make sure, because if you don't make it automatic, we're still going to have a lot of people who just don't think about it, especially people who come from low-performing schools whose parents aren't as aware. Did you think about just making it an automatic ranking of your top 3 choices or top 5 choices, whatever the right number is, and make sure nobody misses the opportunity to take advantage of this important opportunity?
And just so members are aware that we're looking at page 66 of the reprint, which is, 66 of the amendment, and page 83 of the reprint. So I know that we're all kind of operating off different documents depending on when you read that.
Steve Canavero, I could be wrong here. Maybe the chair knows if this is the first statewide open enrollment bill that we've had.
Assemblymember Torres. Well, I guess I'm not testifying.
I'm sorry, yeah.
I was going to say for the record.
533, in other words.
Yeah, this is not the first open enrollment. I know that we had a version of open enrollment last legislative session, but to my knowledge, and I can pass it over, I think this is the first version of a statewide open enrollment that we would have existing in the NRS. So I think that this language, if I understand, feel free, legal, to if you want to take over. But my understanding is that this language then just kind of enables us for the establishment of a process, but there would be nothing in this language as I read it that would prevent a district from doing exactly as Assemblymember or Licker said.
Steve Canavero, so thank you for providing my testimony. That's where I was headed, and I was sort of backing it up with. There's also a provision here for the department to review this and study this and understand who's actually because we can all share this intention, but if in reality we continue to find that our students in, let's say, low performing zones are not exercising their options, I think it's worth exploring why and what needs to happen. If they're not interested, that's different, but if they just don't have access to the information, or it's too complicated, or our systems that we've developed aren't necessarily easy to navigate, then we need to change those. Appreciate the push, and I appreciate the response.
Thank you. Assemblymember Dahlia.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I have a quick question about the interplay between sections 10 and 86. It seems to me, based on the combination of those two, that the appointed board members' voting power wouldn't kick in until July 1st, 2027. Is that an intentional 2-year delay? And if so, could you clarify why that's the case? Thank you.
Steve Canavero, we're looking at it right now. Okay, it looks like section 10 is the existing appointed board members who become voting. Okay, and then section 86 is related to the SOTs? No, 86.
Section 86 is the
date.
Correct. Yeah.
We can look more into that. I don't think the intention. I think the original language was from 460, and so we should probably ensure that the effective date that was in 460 for that provision of sitting appointed become voting is consistent with that original intent.
Thank you. Assembly members, any additional questions? I know I have a second round. Is there anybody who has not yet asked a question that was super eager to? It doesn't appear so. So we'll go ahead and do a second round of questions. So I'll go. Before I do that, though, I did have a couple questions of my own. So my first question is in regards to. And this is just for us to get clarification. So in section 8.8, can you clarify, this is talking about the reporting language for the data validation system. And I know that we've talked extensively about this, but I had a question today about what the superintendent was referring to here about how we could pull this money and what it was intended for. So if you could speak to what the intent of this language is. Thank you.
Steve Canvero, thank you. The intent of that is consistent with the overall theme around reporting inefficiencies and reducing them, leveraging our efficiencies where we have them. That section specifically refers to what we have. Our electronic system is the Infinite Campus system. So statewide use of Infinite Campus. We believe that there's been some exploration about other districts who want to have a similar version, if you will, or optioned version as Clark County School District, which we think if other districts wanted to use that, we could streamline reporting because electronically we have the information. We don't need to go and continue to ask a district to send us a report that we already have in our lap. So that's the intention behind that section.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I know that we've had a conversation about it, but because I don't have an amendment in front of the entire committee, I know that we had a conversation about some of the language in here in regard to pre-K. And so I know that there was language that gave access for funds to be used for for-profit pre-Ks. My understanding is that we will be eliminating that language but we will continue to allow for the university programs to have that option. Is that correct?
Steve Canvero, that is correct, and I think reflected in the conceptual amendment, SB 460 Amendment -6225. Yep.
Thank you. I know that we've been working on conceptual. I don't think that my members have any conceptual yet, so I know that I've seen something, but I just wanted it very transparent for the public. I know that there's a lot of moving parts. We did only get this bill yesterday. Right, that's just the reality. I got this bill. I think the conceptual amendment came out to the public yesterday afternoon, and so at this point, we immediately started reading it and going through it. And so I appreciate the superintendent for being so available for that. Assemblymember Mosca.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee members, for asking so many of my questions. I appreciate that. I just want to say on the record, too, I very much support accountability, and that's why I've always been a supporter of public charter schools that are monitored and can be closed. And so first I wanted to ask, Section 18 also has that school board trustees can say no to new charter schools opening, and I know in the reprint in the amendment that it has changed it so there's no teeth in it, right? So they could say no, but the SPCSA can still do it. Why is that still included if it doesn't have actual accountability?
Steve Canavero, I believe that it remains included so that a board can review a charter. It's in statute that a board of trustees could review a charter application, could make findings, and transmit those findings to the State Public Charter School Authority.
Thank you. And, as someone who served on the SPCSA before being here, I know there is already even an environmental study that they have to do. So I used to read those 300 pages, 400 pages of the applications, and school districts did already have an opportunity where they could say how their impact could be. And I do appreciate my colleague on the other side of the aisle for asking the questions about a trustee being put on the SPCSA. I would say being on the SPCSA, I would say prepping those meetings, some of that I did more time than committees here at the legislature. So I just don't know how a trustee who was a trustee, probably has a full-time job because it's not a paid job, and would serve on the SPCSA. I think that would be really hard to ask someone to do. And so then I just have a few technical questions that I think could be quicker ones. In Section 6, it keeps talking about the charter school sponsor, making sure that should be the governing board.
Steve Canavero, yes, as I inaccurately described or labeled as a conceptual amendment, I apologize. It is a punch list of bullet points of places within the bill that we just think need to be clarified with respect to a charter sponsor. We believe we're okay with executive director of a charter school, and I'll just say we have the opportunity to describe in regulation what we mean by that, because we also know that not every charter school is led by an executive director, some are by principal, some are by chief academic. Like, there's a lot of different ways to label them. So, but your point about making sure that that we hit the right level of governance at the school or at the sponsor level, we have a number of places where we think that technically those changes need to be made.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And then I had asked this in Ways and Means, but I think it's just really important to put on the record. Everywhere I have section 20.5 written down that we're saying that the city and county officials can take over schools. We do think that those city council members and those county commissioners would have the same amount of responsibility as school board trustees. I mean, if they're going to take over schools, are we saying it's the commiserate or is it different?
Steve Canavero, in the revised 460, the transfer to the city or county has been removed. So that
Completely removed.
It's been
Okay.
completely removed.
So when it's talking about it in the section 20.5, it's only the charter school, the city and counties that are charter school authorizers, which we put in law last session.
Steve Canavero, that is correct. And the section 20.5 specifically allows if a school district is low performing, underperforming, and a school within that school district is low performing, underperforming, the city or county in which that district and school are located could expand their existing charter schools. So it does apply to those counties who have charter schools, may expand their enrollment in those schools, but no more than 15% of the school's capacity currently. So that's the specific section 20.5 and how it would work.
Okay, thank you. And last question, Chair, just there are so much changes about 388G in here. I just wanted to ask, are principals and schools able to keep their carryover funds that they can use at their schools, or does this envision that they would not be able to do that anymore?
Steve Canavero, one of the discussion points and proposed adjustments within the revised 460.925 is to more closely align the language here to the original conceptual amendment that was offered during 460's introduction.
Okay.
And so there's a time bound to the carryover. They can't keep them in perpetuity. So in the original conceptual amendment, or they have a prioritized list of things that they're to spend their reserve. Sorry, I couldn't remember the word.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. At this time, I'll go next to Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for the presentation. Quite helpful. Section 10, subsection 10, page 58 of the reprint. Can you help me understand what's driving the need for that subsection?
Steve Canavero, and it's the if after 2 years? No.
The Board of Trustees of a school district may, top of page 58.
Oh, Steve Canavero, that top of page 58, sorry. 10 sub 10. I believe that the intent is to make clear that a board member is a board member, whether they're elected or appointed. Obviously, the intent of the act is to provide appointed board members who sit on a board of trustees to have the same duties and capacities as voting, but also as an elected board. And I think that the intent here is to make clear that whether you've arrived through appointment or you have arrived as an elected member, that your responsibilities are the same and your rights are the same as a board. I think this is to correct a matter that occurred in the past.
So if there was happened to be a student that was appointed to the board, they would then have the same rights as an elected member?
Steve Canavero, I don't make that interpretation for a student seat, but that's a good clarifying question. if I were asked right now, as I understand, and again, haven't been into the
Superintendent,
Yes.
at
Oh,
this
I'm
time,
sorry.
we can go to legal.
Phone a
so-
friend. Thank you for
Yeah,
saving me.
Asher's super excited.
Like
This
he's
must be-
way over his skis on this. Let's
Yes,
go
he
to
is.
Asher.
He's been waiting for this moment all day.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Committee Counsel. So the distinction there is that students cannot actually be board members. They may be advisory, but under the Nevada Constitution, you cannot hold public office unless you are an elector, so you have to be 18 years of age. So student members under the Nevada Constitution cannot, be actual members of the Board of Trustees. They would be serving in an advisory capacity, so this provision could not reach them.
I have a follow-up with. Sorry, Chair. You could have a student in high school that is over 18.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Asher Killian, Committee Counsel. Theoretically, yes. And if that student were appointed by one of the four entities that have the capacity to appoint a member, the county or the cities, and they were appointed through that mechanism and they were 18 years of age, then they would be a regular appointed member of the body as opposed to a student member. But anybody who's serving in the capacity of a student member as opposed to one of the 11, for lack of a better description, typical members of the body, this provision would say that among those 11 members, there cannot be discrimination in rights or duties, but it would not extend to a student member who is serving outside of those 11 seats.
Regardless of their age.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go next to Assemblymember Koenig.
So kind of sticking to the, thank you, Chair, kind of sticking to the same topic. I mean, it's pretty well defined in Clark County that, you have 7 elected, you have 1 appointed by the county commissioners, and you have 3 by the next largest cities, with, Henderson, North Las Vegas, and Vegas. But in Washoe County, you're adding one, and it just says the appointing authority shall make an appointment. What's the appointing authority? Who is that that's going to be making that appointment in Washoe County? Section 10, subsection 6.
Steve Cambero, that is existing language that's not that we're not changing.
At this point, I'll go ahead and defer again to our legal, Asher Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Asher Killian, Committee Counsel. So yes, the subsection 6 there is existing language in NRS 386-165. It's referring up to subsection 2, which is the subsection that applies only for Clark County, that their board's composed of 11 members, some of which are elected, some of which are appointed.
So who is the appointing authority that's going to make the appointment in Washoe County?
That subsection
Or
would not
section
apply
6.
to Washoe County because it only refers up to subsection 2 of this section, which applies only to Clark County based on the number of pupils currently. And the appointing authorities are then broken down in paragraphs B and C of subsection 2 as to it being the county commission and then the governing bodies of the cities.
All right. At this point, I'll go ahead and go to our next Assemblymember, Assemblymember Lewis Hatch.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'm going to skip forward in the bill, and I'm going to go to Section 50, subsection 3. That's page 121 on the amendment. I just had some questions on the teacher evaluations. It says that now for ELA, science, and math teachers, their evaluations will be based on examinations administered pursuant to NRS 390.105. Can you just speak to what those examinations will be?
Steve Cambero, thanks for the question. Yes, educational growth on those examinations in the NEPF. Those examinations are our statewide examinations, 3 through 8, math, English language arts, science in 5th and 8th, those assessments. Read the reading assessment is under 105 as well. So they're reading assessment in third grade too.
So for high school, currently it would be the ACT, is that correct?
Yeah, the ACT in high school in 11th grade.
So my question on that is then, especially for high school teachers, the ACT is not aligned to our state standards. It's not aligned to our curriculum. So now we will be evaluated on a test that has nothing to do with what we're teaching. Is that an accurate reading?
Steve Canavero, no, it's not required. So for non-tested grades and subjects, I think there's permissive language in here to ensure that where it's aligned, and then there's language also for those sections that are not tested in a tested grade or subject. So there's a number of different avenues, including the existing formerly student learning objectives or student learning goals, to ensure that that teachers have outcomes, but because there's no assessment behind the outcome, they can still have their NEPF they can still be evaluated.
Chair, can I follow up? So for the ACT, they take that at the beginning of their junior year. There's math on that some of them have not learned yet. And are you saying, because there's only one test for high school, if I teach freshmen, am I going to be evaluated based on the results of my students in 2 years when they take that junior level test? How does that apply?
Steve Canavero, that's not my understanding of how it would apply. I don't know, because of its limitation around educational growth, the way I read that is in order to be in a tested grade and subject, that assessment has to measure educational growth. And the ACT obviously would not do that. Again, I think that there's, and this was in the original 460, not the R1 language for the revisions to the NEPF, but there's inclusive language that we think strikes the right balance of both meeting the original language around the educational growth on the assessments, but then also having the appropriate flexibility when necessary for outside of those particular grades and subjects.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm not sure if you're looking to add more, so I wanted to pause.
Oh, no, Steve
okay.
Canavero, I was just going to reference section 50, sub 3, which provides a bit about what could substitute course embedded assessments, teacher developed assessments, or align with the standards identified in the area the highest pupil need within an individual classroom. So there's some,
Right.
those are the specific areas that I was referencing earlier.
As long as you're not an ELA science or math teacher.
Steve Canavero, if there's an assessment for educational growth in the dot 105 section of law, then yeah, I think you would want to use that first.
Okay. And then, Chair, if I can go to my next question. Page 55 in the amendment, section 14.1. Looking in this section, it says that we have to prioritize the filling of each classroom-based position before the staffing of any position that is not classroom-based. I wondered if you could explain that. You know, if my school is really struggling to get a social studies teacher, are we then not allowed to hire a janitor? I just wonder, is that going to impact the other positions, or if you could just expand on that?
Steve Canavero, good question. The reason why we were conferring is that there's been lots of conversation about the 17-to-1 ratio, and it's currently on the list of things to remove in the bill that you're reading, R1. Ideally in R2, that will be reflected.
Thank you, and I greatly appreciate that. That was another question I had, but I was actually asking about the next part, sub 2, where it says prioritize the filling of each classroom-based position before the staffing of any position that is not classroom-based. I just wonder, is that going to ban us from hiring support staff if we have vacant teacher positions? Because I think the last thing we want is to be missing a teacher and then also not be able to hire custodians or bus drivers to help us out.
Steve Canavero, that's not the intent behind this language, and I think this language all supposes the 17-to-1 ratio and how you go about filling those positions that are necessary. I anticipate that if that section, the 17-1 is removed, then that section will be either eliminated or revised substantially.
Thank you, Superintendent. I'll make sure that if it's not already in the amendment, and just so members of the public and members of the committee know, we have posted on Nellis the version that you have. I didn't. So we got permission to share that it was no longer confidential. So you can go ahead and view that on Nellis if you'd like to see the technical changes that have been submitted. And we'll make sure that if that is not addressed, as I'm a member, that it is addressed. One final question from Assemblymember Louis Hatch before I go to next member.
Thank you, Chair. This is what my bill looks like, so the fact that I only get one more is a sacrifice. My question really is just more of an overarching question. There's a lot of focus on interventions and punishments and fixes and all of these things, but I didn't really see even one time here in this almost 200-page bill any mention of class size. And I just wondered if you could speak to why we are not addressing what I think is the most critical issue in education, of the fact that we have the largest class sizes in the nation.
Steve Cambero, yeah, it's not specifically within this bill. And, I can appreciate, like, when you read the bill, I think the early conversations were like, oh, geez, you're focusing on this sort of punitive side. We're like, no, if you want to legislate support's easy when it comes down to, like, the challenges related to interventions that needs to be in legislation. The class sizes are not considered necessarily or specifically in terms of the ratios. Obviously, as we continue to support schools, there are different pathways to understanding what it is at a particular school that's causing the disruption in student learning. And there are, we hope, as we look at the bill and our interpretation, there are a number of opportunities to work with the district and work with the school to, if in fact the root cause is class size, then having opportunities to work in collaboration with the district and a school would be a welcome opportunity to address some of those school site issues. We do have a dashboard. There's on the increased transparency side. I don't know that this fully resolves, but at least it is something that we're paying attention to. In section 78, there's additional sort of transparency related to class sizes and the development of a dashboard that helps the public understand the class sizes that some of our schools are working with.
Thank you. Next, I'll go to Vice Chair Da Silva.
Thank you, Chair. Superintendent, I had a quick question. And again, I'm putting my teacher hat on here. I know in section 15.5, there was some conversation there about professional development. And again, that term, this may not seem big to everybody, but whenever we teachers see that, we always think about, okay, so what does that mean? What kind of burdens are we going to potentially receive, through those two words? So my question is, how do you envision these professional developments that are supposed to be in line now with a list of goals that are mentioned in section 1.3, just to quell some of those concerns there, sir?
Yeah,
Thank
Steve Cambero, we certainly hope that it's meaningful to educators. I mean, that would be it's a new approach, I think, for schools, and then to have this requirement specific to the elementary schools and the plan for achievement. Obviously, this is a responsibility at the district and the school to figure out specifically what that looks like. But your commitment to high quality professional learning for educators is, there are a number of sections within the bill that support it. So I glossed over the literacy section quickly, just because for time. But there's statewide professional learning for the transition to the science of reading across the state as well. I've had conversations with others about what that looks like, and we think R1 at least reflects the intention to make sure it's high quality. It's of no expense to the educator or their employer. And within the appropriations in the bill, there's support for, let's say, the RPDP, the universities, to provide that support. We wouldn't although we would identify what quality looks like, we wouldn't particularly say that this particular UNLV has the market share on get everybody to do this. We would leave that opportunity up for the districts and schools to figure out or to negotiate.
Quick follow-up? Thank you, Chair. And Mr. Superintendent, do you see a significant amount of teacher input into those professional developments?
Steve Cambero, I certainly hope so. But at the state level, with the Commission on Professional Standards, the Academic Standards Council, they're teachers. And so the Teachers and Leaders Council, a lot of educators. And so, I think it's built to have teacher principal voice in a lot of the sort of policy level actions that the state takes or the state board takes. As we get further removed from the state policy level and we go into what it looks like in practice, I would imagine that probably differs a little bit, but I think at the district or a school level, yeah.
Thank you. We'll go next to Assemblymember Flanagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question has to do with the oversight and budget. It's really two parts, but we'll see if I get two out. So the oversight officials, it reads that the districts may have to pay out of the salary of their mandatory oversight officials out of their already limited budget. So can you talk about why this cost is being placed on the school districts?
Steve Cambero, thanks for the question. So it's similar with the state monitor work that's currently allowed in law, where in that particular case, it'd be the district would pay for the state monitor. So it's sort of modeled after that. There's also a provision deeper into the bill for. I'm going to get the words wrong here, but the idea the same. That the department can go to IFC for a request for extraordinary costs related to supports for schools or districts. So there is an opportunity there. If the plan is approved by the oversight board, there's an opportunity for if we're short on funds somehow in executing the particular plan, there is an extraordinary measures cost opportunity to go before IFC.
Madam Chair, should I quick follow up now? So in the vein of going to IFC for extraordinary cost to pay these officials, and then the number of reports, it's like some 30 additional new reports coming out of this bill to go with, or just an extreme number of reports to go with the already extreme number of reports that we're collecting in terms of data that I don't know if they're serving us well. How do you envision all of this data collection to be useful and to be managed more so, not so much useful, but managing it so that it is useful?
Yeah, a great question. Just personally, something I dislike the most is just the overburden of the reporting, and especially if we're not utilizing them. So I'll just quickly touch. I don't read the 30 reports, but that could be the case within the bill. There's a number of avenues to go to pursue in order to eliminate redundant or burdensome reporting. I kind of had mentioned earlier, teachers or educators at the school site can propose a report that they feel is redundant. It can go to the superintendent of schools. They can make a determination, or it can go all the way to the state superintendent to make a determination to eliminate, so long as transparency and federal and state law are maintained. But the one area I would say that is significantly shifting is that the reporting around the school improvement, we are shifting to a progress monitoring and performance monitoring conversation at the state. So what that could look like is, as a school and as the state are working for in collaboration for improvement, and the use of reports there are intended to be not burdensome, but hyper-focused on the types of learning gains that are occurring, the strategies, the fidelity of those strategies at the school site. So it's a bit of a shift in the use of reports rather than just sending a report up to the state and then having it be filed.
Yeah, and Superintendent, something that you didn't bring up, I think, is that there's a lot of measures in here to decrease the amount of reporting too, including requiring that there's some type of evaluation of the reports that exist right now, and then having mechanisms for schools to also recommend reports to be eliminated. As working in a school, I've seen, I know that there's over 5 pages of reports that schools do every single year, and many of those are duplicative. So I think this is a good step forward for us reducing that burdensome workload. And I think some of the reports even included here can be merged pretty simply with other existing reports. And so I look forward to seeing that in both roles, working in education, but then also in this capacity as a lawmaker. Assembly members, is there anyone who didn't ask a second question that would like to ask another question? I will say I am committed to continuing to review this language well throughout the interim. Obviously, there's a number of pieces of this piece of legislation that don't take effect for a number of years. And so I think that does give us time as a community for us to continue to come together and make tweaks and make changes to this legislation. And so I look forward to being a part of that conversation, because obviously we have 12 hours till sine die, and I would hate to see this not advance, because I do think there are a number of good policies in this bill. So with that, I'm not seeing any additional questions. Thank you so much, State Superintendent, for your time and for working with this and for meeting with me very extensively on just this bill alone over the last couple of weeks. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your attention and questions, committee.
With that, we are going to go to support. I know that I had said we were going to attempt to do 30 minutes, but just with us being about 12 and a half hours till tiny die, we are going to go ahead and do 20 minutes support, 20 minutes opposition, and 20 minutes neutral. If you do have any written remarks and for whatever reason you're not able to get up today, please feel free to submit those, and we will review them before the work session as well. So we'll go ahead and start here in Carson City first. Please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Torres Fawcett. For the record, Patty Charlton on behalf of the Nevada System of Higher Education. We stand in support of this legislation.
Good morning, Chair Torres Fawcett, members of the committee. For the record, Leonardo Benavides here on behalf of UNLV in strong support of SB 460. We have a strong track record of teacher workforce development at our College of Education, such as our nationally recognized Nevada Forward, and see SB 460 as an opportunity to give us more tools in the toolbox to reinforce those programs and help address the huge needs of our students and schools. The ability to apply for grants for early childhood literacy and readiness programs, or to establish the pilot program for alternative pathways, gives us more ways to be able to address the teacher pipeline that our College of Education is excited to undertake. Funding that this bill also provides, such as support for NITIP and the apprenticeship support count, are crucial as well, and we're very happy to see that in this bill. We want to thank both Senator Canizaro and Governor Lombardo and their respective teams for working along with us throughout the entire process, and we thank you for giving us opportunity to support.
Hello, everybody, Chair, members of the committee. Gil Lopez with the Charter School Association of Nevada, here in support of SB 460. We do want to commend the Majority Leader, the Governor's office, as well as the NDE, for working with the public charter sector to get the majority of our concerns addressed. We are committed to continue the conversation in the interim to see what's working, what's not. So you got the commitment from the charter school sector that we are here at the table to make sure that we do what's best for education here in Nevada. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Anthony Curry, Director of Advocacy and Public Policy for Opportunity 180, and I'll just go with a ditto. Thanks.
Michael Flores, the University of Nevada, Reno. Want to thank everybody involved, especially on Section 13 we're supportive, and ditto will be quick.
Good morning. For the record, Paul Merrick from the Vegas Chamber. On behalf of the business community, we appreciate all the efforts that have been put forward today to get this compromise, and we look forward to the implementation. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Nicole Rourke, representing the City of Henderson. Thank you for the changes in working with us. We're especially supportive of Section 10 for the voting rights for the appointed trustees, and appreciate all the work that's gone into this bill, and we look forward to the increased accountability. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Sarah Adler for the Public Charter School Coalition of Northern Nevada. We want to thank very much the Majority Leader and the Governor for their listening to our needs. In particular, the new SB 460 recognizes the capacity of small schools, for example, not requiring a full-time school counselor, so we appreciate that. There are many good pieces of policy that were put into this bill that we have supported. That's exciting to see. In particular, the examination of at-risk, how many pupils should be identified as at risk, because several of our schools are Title I schools. I myself am a passionate follower of the Commission on School Funding, and this they have been given good charges within this bill and funding to do it. On the punch list, I suggest clarification or just recognition that both WCSD and Carson City School District are both districts and authorizers. So in terms of designation of low-performing district or authorizer, there might be some conflation there. So just wanted to put that out for the punch list. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair Torres Fawcett and committee members. Henry Rosas, External Affairs Manager with United Way of Southern Nevada. Just really quickly want to thank you all for hearing the bill today, and most particularly just want to note the pre-K portion. It's a portion of the bill that will really transform the landscape for pre-K, not just with the financial investment, but also the provisions allowing us to spend more money for students per seat, allowing us to establish more flexibility with equitable salaries, purchasing supplies to enhance learning outcomes, increasing funding for new centers, but most importantly, a provision that's important for us is making sure that we can prioritize students who need the services, including students who are English learners. So thank you so much for hearing the bill today and urge your support.
Thank you, Mr. Rosas. So good to see you in Assembly Education. At this time, I don't see anyone else here in Carson City wishing to testify in support. We'll go to Las Vegas.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. Marie Nisus, CCA President. We thank Majority Leader Canizero and Governor Lombardo for advancing this important legislation. We acknowledge that this bill represents a compromise between the Majority Leader and Governor Lombardo aimed at passing legislation that will enhance education for our students. We appreciate their leadership throughout this process. A significant amount of work went into crafting this legislation, including collaboration with CCEA. For far too long, there has been a disconnect between the state and local school districts. Fixing that disconnect is long overdue. We understand that the focus must remain on improving academic outcomes for students. To that end, we should not shy away from accountability. The state must have the authority to implement meaningful intervention measures to ensure that laws passed are carried out effectively at the district level. While efforts have been made to support and improve underperforming schools, we must also ensure that parents have real options, especially for our most vulnerable students. SB 460 is not a perfect solution, but it is a meaningful compromise. It represents progress, and it will move Nevada's education system in the right direction. While there is still work to be done to fully meet the needs of all students, SB 460 is a critical step forward. Thank you.
Honorable Chair and members of the committee, my name is Amanda Morgan, M-O-R-G-A-N, Executive Director of Educate Nevada Now. We're expressing our support for SB 460. A bill this ambitious is not going to be perfect and have everything that you want, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. Very much appreciate the renewed, evaluation of the at-risk formula, increased accountability for not only public schools, but for the private school voucher program. There's always going to be more work to do, but we urge your support of SB 460. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else in Las Vegas, ABH, is anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of SB 460?
To testify in support for Senate Bill 460, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, the lines are open and working. We have no callers choosing to testify in support.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and go to opposition. Is there anyone wishing to testify in opposition to SB 460? Please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Alexander Marks with the Nevada State Education Association. Per the rules, while there's much to like about Senate Bill 460, we disagree with major portions of the bill and must also express concern over the rushed process. A bill of this magnitude with far-reaching implications demands far more than one day to thoroughly analyze and understand. However, we do appreciate the sponsor working with us on some of these provisions, and we share in the stated goals to improve education outcomes and increase transparency and accountability. So let's talk about the good. Expansion to pre-K. We strongly support the $50 million investment in expanding pre-K statewide, untethered from corporate handouts. We all know that these are good investments to make. We support the immunity that protects our school employees and good faith interventions and incidents that pose an imminent risk to the safety of pupils or staff. Charter school accountability. We have applauded the greater controls for charter schools and provisions giving districts the ability to object to formation of them. The miscellaneous, there's several other positions that we support, ensuring school sites have a counselor or counseling services. There's more transparency and accountability related to private school vouchers and excessive testing. But there's a lot of these provisions in the bill that are of concern. The performance accountability mechanism of the bill could set schools with high concentrations of poverty to fail by threatening probation, state takeover, or replacement of staff. These are punitive measures that ignore systemic inequities that unfairly penalize schools and our most vulnerable students. We prefer the quarterly reporting of class size, as it's one of the most important issues and confounding issues in Nevada. Voting rights for appointed school boards is something we've consistently opposed for close to 5 to 10 years, it seems. Democratically elected school boards bring the greatest levels of accountability and responsiveness to the communities they serve. Allowing the Commission on School Funding to hire a third-party vendor to seemingly do what they've already done seems out of place. We have their most important work. We should have passed the plan. We have to highlight that this bill that seeks to improve education failed to address the most critical factor, which is in funding. It's hard to view this bill with the backdrop of a $2 increase to per pupil funding next year. We are behind the national average, $4,000. This pushes us further behind, and districts will be preparing cuts for our schools and programs. For accountability to be meaningful, it must include how we invest in our schools. So there is a lot to like, there's a lot to dislike, but if we had another 120 days, I could finish. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Please make sure you submit your remarks to us. I'm sure you will. I don't see anybody else here in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition to SB 460, and I see none in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anyone on the line?
To testify in opposition to Senate Bill 460, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Again, if you wish to testify in opposition, please press star 9.
Thank you, Chair Torres-Fawcett and the committee. My name is Shelby Swartz, SHELBIE SWARTZ, and I'm the Executive Director of Battleborn Progress. I'm just going to go ahead and ditto the comments from our friends over at NSEA. Thank you. Hi, Katrin Ivanov, IVANO Frank. As the previous speaker said, there's a lot of good things in the bill and a lot of good intention. The presenter keeps saying that is not intent of the bill, that is not intent of the bill, yet the words, the way it's written was leaving to the interpretation, and that actually the bill can be used not as intended, because once it's in the books, the intent, if it's not in the wording of the bill, many people would not know what the intent was. And let's not forget the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So I want to say that I was in full support of the governor's original bill. However, this is a diluted version. And one of the things that is a very sticking point with me is giving a vote to people that we didn't elect on the school board. If you want to have a vote on the school board, make that position electable. The people that we're electing are responsible, and we can elect other people. But the people that are just appointed, you want to give 4 votes to whoever is in power right now to appoint those people. That's very partisan and very. I'm very disappointed that that bill passed anonymously in the Senate, because 98% of the people on that list, more than 11 pages of people, that means over 1,100 people voted. 98% of the people are in opposition, yet not one of our representatives had the character to stand up for us. Please vote no. if you are a Christian, please pray on
Thank
it.
you so much for
This bill
your
is not good for
testimony. We
our
can go to the next caller. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Oscar Williams, Oscar Williams, Reno, Nevada. I'm opposed to SB 460 because it limits the choices of parents and students have to seek out their best educational opportunities. This bill is a top-down education bureaucratic nightmare. It will not improve education in Nevada. You're seeking a legislative solution to what I see is mostly a policy problem, such as DEI, alt gender studies, Common Core, no arts, music, crafts, no social studies or civics. These are the tools that kids seek and want, a little traditional in their form, but you know, the old thing worked pretty good and the new system hasn't been working, and I don't think that the people in control who are responsible for the current debacle that is our poor student outcomes to be the arbiters of the solution. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The governor's got a much better bill out there. Support that one, deny this one, and I think we're maybe getting somewhere. Please vote no on SB 460 and the amendment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next caller.
Oh, hi, Yolanda Canuck, Yolanda, last name Knaak. Actually, I was in favor of the governor's education bill, but there's parts of this new combination that I'm opposed to, a variety of issues, and one of them actually is also what one of the previous callers mentioned about the appointed school board members being able to vote, and so I'm sorry, but I'm opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. That is not a problem. We accept your apology. Next caller.
Good morning. This is Tammy Romo, Tamiromo. I'm glad that the parties were able to cross the aisle and come together for a bill, but it also seems that the original bill that Lombardo put forth was much better than the bill that we have now. So it seems like a lot of his ideas have been cut out of the bill. So I agree with all the previous callers, and I do not support this bill, AB 460. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Torres Fawcett. It's so good to see / hear your beautiful voice. This is Dora Martinez, and I ditto the prior callers. Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you. Good to hear from you, Dora.
Chair, we have no more callers for opposition at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and go to neutral. Is there anyone here in Carson City or in Las Vegas wishing to testify in neutral? I see a couple people standing, so I'll give them a moment.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. It is Dylan Shaver here today with Pinion Public Affairs on behalf of the Washoe County School District. It is wonderful to see your faces and hear your beautiful voices. We're here in the neutral position on this bill, given the late hour and the many changes that have been made over this in just the last couple of days. I would be remiss not to point out the district's tremendous gratitude to the various players in the game at this stage, including our chair here today and the state superintendent as well. This has been a lot of labor, and we want to honor the work that you and the committee have put into this. I don't think any school district in this state is afraid of accountability, and while we are here in the neutral position because it's just such a broad measure, I would like to remind the committee that anything that pegs that accountability to the Nevada School Performance Framework as it stands right now is essentially holding school districts, administrators, and our hardworking teachers accountable for things that are largely outside of their control. The NSPF measures, for the most part, the affluence of the community that those schools serve. I think we all know that, and we look forward to working with the legislative interim and the state superintendent to hopefully continue to move in a direction that making sure that we're measuring what matters. With that said, Madam Chair, unless there are any questions, it is my honor to have been here for what is hopefully my last time in front of your committee today. Thank you.
There's still time.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Tom Clark. I am here, hopefully for the last time, on behalf of the Nevada Association of School Boards, but I doubt it, Madam Chair. We are here in a neutral position. In my experience, when you see a really big bill come from the governor's office and a really big bill come from the legislature, rarely do you see all of it come together in the most perfect place that it can possibly be. And so that's why we rise in a neutral position. A lot of the policies that are in this bill are policies that have been discussed in other pieces of legislation that we have supported, that we've opposed and worked on amendments and the like. So as we remain in the neutral position, we want to definitely thank all of the people that have come to the table and worked on this, from the governor's office to your committee to the superintendent, to Senator Canizaro's office and her team. This has been quite a labor over the last couple of weeks. Anybody who thinks that this was just slammed down everybody's throat is adamantly wrong. This has been something that we have been working on, and the best pieces of legislation are those that not everybody agrees on every single section. Madam Chair, you did bring up work in the interim. We're very committed to working with the interim committee and any other groups that want to get together. One thing that we like about the accountability piece of this is there is some runway, so that we know that 2 years from now, the districts aren't going to be closed down based on what has happened in the recent past. And that gives us an ability to work with this committee in the interim and others to maybe make it a little bit better, a little bit stronger down the road. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good morning, for 2 more minutes, I guess. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name's Mary Brzezinski, here representing Nevada Association of School Superintendents. And first of all, the superintendents want to thank the majority leader for the work on this, the governor for his work on it, and I also think, and you, Chairwoman, did a lot of work on this bill, and we appreciate that very much. I also want to thank Superintendent Canavero. I think his analysis was very helpful this morning, and he has just been in his job for 5 weeks or 6 weeks, and he did a great job putting that together and also putting together the little sheet that really identifies the various areas of this 200-page bill. We're in the neutral position today because we have not had an opportunity to talk to all the superintendents. We will get that opportunity next week at their conference and really delve into this, and happy to work with the interim committee or anybody else who's going to kind of smooth the bill out and help us actually work the bill and carry out the mandates in the bill. So we appreciate the work that's been done and appreciate the time today to hear this good analysis. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Brad Keating, representing the Clark County School District. Again, we are here in neutral, like our partners at NAS and NASB. I won't go through all the reasons. I will just take a moment to again thank the majority leader, the governor's office, Superintendent Canavero, Chair Torres Fawcett, for all of your work on this bill to get us to this point. And since I have 1 minute and 40 seconds left, there's nothing else happening for the rest of the day. I'll just take the rest of the time. No, I just wanted to take one more second to again thank you all as a committee for all of the work that you've done over the last 120 days. It's not easy, it's not fun, but you all do it with grace and smiling the whole way through. So to the committee, to LCB, to legal, to the committee staff, thank you for everything you do every day. Thanks.
I'm Teddy Craig of Catfish Kickstart Program. I'm speaking from the neighborhood standpoint. I've been listening to this bill. I've been seeing out all the clicks and clannings. For one, each school is different. The schools down in Vegas is different than the ones going here in Reno, and the school is full of violence. I hear all this pretty stuff for the teachers, but what can we do about these students? These students need some help. If put a counselor in there to help them. I went through the school down here and they were shooting on a property. Now let's deal with that. I understand the teachers need a little bit more money. I understand we need to critique but let's deal with these kids. These kids are the future board members of where each one of y'all sitting at. Each one of these kids are out here, they're our presidents, they're gonna be our governors. Okay, they need money, they need all this to do for what's here now, but let's please work on these children. These children, they produce something in these schools. This bill, I listened to how they said. The gentleman was so confused when y'all asked him questions. I almost didn't know how to laugh.
Sorry, we don't speak about the presenters, but you can talk about the bill itself.
But
Thank you.
The bill itself, it covers a lot of avenues. The old bill covered a little bit more, but in this bill alone, before y'all consider it, please think about the kids. If any of y'all have any in school, think about what they're going through at their school. Talk to them, because I'm neutral about this bill, and this is why I'm in this seat. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else here in neutral here in Carson City nor in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral to SB 460?
To testify in neutral to Senate Bill 460, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Madam Chair, I'm actually in opposition, so I don't know if I can speak or not. I think there was a technical difficulty when I originally
Go ahead and proceed.
But it's actually good afternoon now. So good afternoon, Chair Torres Fawcett and members of the Assembly Education Committee. My name is Jeff Horn, H-O-R-N, and I proudly serve as the Executive Director of the Clark County Association of School Administrators and Professional Technical Employees, representing over 1,700 site-based and central office administrators. On behalf of our association, I want to express appreciation for the ongoing dialogue between our organization and the Senate and Assembly leadership and the Governor's office. While we support many components of this bill, there are some aspects, specifically changes in 388G, that we oppose. Therefore, we are speaking in opposition. While SB 460 reduces the autonomy of building principals and making critical outcome-driven decisions, we understand that large-scale legislation often requires compromise. That said, we urge this committee to continue supporting our school leaders by recognizing the limitations they face under the proposed framework contained in SB 460, while at the same time this bill holds principals ultimately accountable for student outcomes. Principals are on the front lines of educational success. We are closest to the work and uniquely positioned to identify and implement the changes needed to improve student achievement. To do this effectively, they must be empowered with greater authority, not less, for staffing, operations, and budgeting. Without these tools, we hinder the very progress we seek to achieve. We hope that this is taken in consideration now and in the future as we modify education law to better support the most important individuals that we serve, our students. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for calling in. AVH, is there anyone else on the line?
Chair, we have no callers for neutral.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite Superintendent Canavero for any closing remarks.
Steve Canavero, Interim Superintendent, Public Instruction. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, just as before, greatly appreciate all of the work that you all have put in, recognizing how challenging it is to serve in the legislature. And I did want to correct or at least clarify that the July 2027 effective date for non-voting members to get the right to vote is very intentional and is very much part of the original 460. So it wasn't, there was no disagreement between the effective dates in the bill. It was the effective dates are consistent, and that was very intentional from the start. So thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, I will go ahead and close the hearing on SB 460. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the last item on our agenda, which is public comment. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in public comment? Seeing none here in Carson or in Las Vegas, AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in public comment?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to join the queue.
Hi, this is Katrina Ivanov again. I wanted to express my gratitude for you guys working so hard on this and many other bills. It's today, I believe, it's the last session, maybe tomorrow. But I hope that you guys pray before you cast your votes. I hope that you listen to the people, as we are getting really discouraged when we see that we are calling, we are texting, we are emailing, yet it seems like no one hears us. From time to time, we have some small wins that we feel like you heard us. So we keep on calling and texting and emailing. And thank you for the hard work for everybody, including the people that are on the line, on the phone lines, that helping us go through. Thank you for everybody that testify in opposition or support. It's not too many people that take part of their time to testify. I'm not talking about the people that represent companies and are getting paid to do that. I'm talking to the people that actually care of the future of our kids, regardless how we see it. Thank you for the hard work. And if you're a Christian, please pray before you cast your vote. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. And rest assured, today is the last day. We have 12 hours left. We will not be here tomorrow. If we are, I will not be here tomorrow. Is there anyone else on the line?
Good afternoon. It's Tammy Romo, Tamiromo. Sorry, I'm going to get a little bit emotional. I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity for me to be involved. I was involved a lot this summer and got to see the whole process from beginning to end. I see how hard you guys work. It's a lot of work to do. So I want to thank you for that. But I do want to echo the sentiments that the previous callers that had or said, is that we, the constituents, we hire you guys to listen to us and hopefully make decisions based on what we, the constituents, want. So I'm also hoping that, you know, a lot of these bills just seem to be against the people, you know, or stifling them, or higher taxes making life harder. And you know, you guys are going to face the same hardships that we are. And life isn't supposed to be like that. It was never meant for us to be down here to suffer. So, you know, I wish we can change some of the bills that have already passed. I wish that the bills that we still have opportunity to change, that, you know, look at the pie charts, look at the comments, look at all that stuff, and vote the way you're supposed to in our name, the constituents' name. So thank you so much. I look forward to participating next year, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. I
Chair,
appreciate
we have
Go ahead.
Excuse me. We have no additional callers for neutral testimony. My apologies.
Not a problem. Thank you so much. And with that, members, any comments? Well, go ahead, Vice Chair DeSilva.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to thank you for your leadership, you know, over this committee, and to my committee members, thank you so much. And stakeholders, it's been an absolute honor working with you all. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and echo his sentiments of thank you to the stakeholders. I know we have a lot of the local school districts in here. We have like different organizations that many of the lobbyists here represent, including teachers and principals and other education stakeholders. And so I just am so grateful for the opportunity to work with you all and meet with you, and sometimes disagree, but to the extent possible, trying to find that common ground and making our policy better. I know that Nevada is better because of all the work that you all all put in, and we won't agree all the time, but we can definitely listen to one another and hear what we have to say. So I do appreciate that. Additionally, I want to thank our hardworking committee staff that have probably worked their hardest in the last couple of days and again the next 12 hours. So our committee manager, Catherine, our committee secretary, Mr. Lindsley, who I know is also a master trainer. He said that he saw Assemblymember Orlicker at the gym and was giving him some tips. So I know that those were helpful. Assemblymember Orlicker is going to come back and he's going to be like a bodybuilder. Thanks to those tips. My personal attaché, Olivia No, who many of you have had the opportunity to get to know, who will be leaving Nevada soon to work in D.C., so I'm very excited for her. Miss Mary Whalen, a retired teacher and the best committee assistant. Don't tell Cheryl. All of our committee staff is great in any committee. I know we have Amanda, who supports us with IT. I'm sure she's listening somewhere, running around fixing someone's device. We do appreciate you. Obviously, I have Kelly, who has had to probably work way more than she should have had to this weekend. So I really do appreciate you, especially with these omnibus 150-page bills. Oh, actually, I'm wrong. It's 196 pages of this bill. So I appreciate all that you've done. You've done a great this first session. And of course, our chief legal counsel, Asher Killian, who has been my counsel for 2 sessions in a row and who has done a phenomenal job and has a good 12 more hours of phenomenal work to execute. So we appreciate all that you do. And of course, our Vice Chair, De Silva, and the members. I know you guys have had to do a lot. So with that, the Assembly Committee on Education is in recess.